Greetings. I am Hope, an 11 Labs generated voice introducing this video for Spotify or YouTube. It is July 17th, 2025, and here is Bill Ritchie, interdependent curator for his Ritchie Family Art Gallery. He's going to talk about what it's like to make his 900th video.
A blank screen. It's my 900th video. The question is, what shall I do with this opportunity? It's July 17th, 2025, and I'm making my 900th video since 1970. The question is, what shall I do with this opportunity, with this blank screen? Let's see. 1970. I had just come back from Europe with my wife, and I had curated my first show at the Henry Gallery in December of '69, and I was all excited about all the possibilities. In Europe, my old teacher, Rolf Nesch, was part of the movement in the early part of the 20th century that made printmaking a real art form. And I picked up from him what it was like to be a pioneer, to do something new. Then it was graphics. Very strange graphics. And if you look up Rolf Nesch, you'll see what kind of weird graphics he made. So here I was, all charged up in the early part of 1970. And what was new? Video was new. And so it must have been the lesson of having met Rolf Nesch, a pioneer in graphics. He had discovered something that sustained him for 35 years when I met him. And the lesson was that if I found something new in my day, in my time, that it would sustain me for decades. And I was right.
According to AI sources, in 1970 you began exploring video as a medium for artistic expression, and so you were probably influenced by the rise of video art and the accessibility of consumer-grade equipment, like the Sony Portapack.
No, that's not right at all. In January of 1970, I was excited about becoming a pioneer in something new, and video was the new thing, but it wasn't for art. No, I was as passionate about printmaking as anything, and teaching printmaking was my second passion. And as far as new things went, it looked like video was the coming thing. And so because I was in the University of Washington and they had a huge facility for making videos, all I had to do was make a phone call, and I had access to a lot more than a Sony Portapack. I had 2-camera video productions that were wheeled literally into the printmaking studios. We also had, at that time, 1970, the world's first printmaking seminar, that is in Seattle, the printmaking seminar. And my undergraduate students enrolled, and I used the video to make contact with 4 other institutions around Washington, in Tacoma, Ellensburg, Bellingham, and in downtown Seattle, and interviewed artists who were recently moved to Seattle to take part in the growing printmaking scene. So it had a sort of a non-art beginning. It was not video art. You're talking about Andy Warhol and Namjoon Paik. They were the ones who started in New York and Germany in the early 60s, 63 on up through, for about 10 years or longer. That was a whole different movement, had nothing to do with education that I can point to, and certainly it was nothing to me until a few years later, and that's a whole nother story.
So, the triggering event was working with a pioneer in graphic art, Rolf Nesch. You didn't pioneer in printmaking, but teaching printmaking with video was pioneering?
Not really. My teachers taught all their art classes using film strips and slides and 16mm movies. So using media like that for teaching was not pioneering at all. But video as a form is sort of like all those things combined and on steroids. Uh, it was instant feedback, instant playback, cheap reproduction, universally accessible on videotape machines and so on. So in that sense, it was a pioneering medium, but I didn't pioneer in it. In that sense, my teachers had already done that work. But what came as a result, that's where the pioneering started. That's a good story.
Okay, we visualize you teaching printmaking techniques, and in the room are video cameras, recorders, and engineers making your teaching tape. So what happened?
Well, if you're a video engineer, you turn on the camera and the image goes whoosh. Light comes out of darkness. If you're an art student and you see that happen, it's not the same as if you're an engineer. It has the potential to be art. So in those moments when I saw that my students were more interested in what was going on those viewfinders than what I was doing on the table in front of them, sharpening scrapers and teaching how to make prints and so forth, a light went on. And I went to the director of the department and I said, could I come over and play around in your studio? And as a young man, his future wife, took him to art shows where Mark Tobey and John Cage and others were having their first shows in what became the modern Seattle art movement. With that exposure from his wife Nancy, he said, okay, it's valid, you can come over, but I warn you, don't say play around the engineers. Anyway, that opened up the doors for myself and my students to come to the video studio and play around and experiment. And we then found ourselves being called video artists. That was in 1970.
Now I can visualize you and your students at the university's video studio, playing around. Was that fun?
Oh, it was chaotic. It was a two-story studio, and the mixer and the switcher was in the lower level, and the production studio itself was upstairs. So we were all connected with headphones and headsets and microphones, and someone in the basement below would do something on the switcher. Remember, we were playing, we didn't know what we were doing, and someone upstairs would say, what happened? Because suddenly the screen went black. And so we devised a video game. And mind you, this was when the famous book, The Glass Bead Game, was popular. And my students told me about this, and we out of that idea of the Glass Bead Game and the master and so forth, we created a video game. And this was before video games even existed at the time, but it worked. It helped us organize into a kind of team, but it didn't have a hierarchy. It didn't have a boss like a production studio would have in a television situation. So we entered into collaboration. We entered into teamwork, and we were bound together by this electronic monster kind of thing, but we all had a piece of the tail. It's like holding on to a monster by its head and its horns and its tail, so forth. And it was chaotic and it was fun, and then it kind of opened up to improvisation in a very productive way.
You're saying then that by gaming the system, it was productive? In what way was it productive? Did you produce video art tapes?
At that point in time, we didn't even know how to turn on the power of a videotape recorder, so we didn't record videotapes for quite a while. But we had cameras, and we were coming from a printmaking world. And the camera for us was a way to capture the things we were seeing on the screens. So we took lots and lots of photographs. We took them with 35mm cameras, and sometimes Polaroid cameras. They became our medium of, interface. So we would take photos in the video studio, process the film. You still had to process film in those days. And then we would take the prints and sometimes, not all the time, but we would make lithographs or etchings or mixed media prints from those photographs. Sometimes they made diazo prints, which were kind of a cyanotype process. So we were productive because we could produce things from the experience in the studio back into our medium of printmaking, of hard copy. We gave them the name video stats. Now they call them something else, you know. They do it all the time. So it was productive in that sense. But there was another kind of productivity that came out that surprised us all, and it was profound.
This is very interesting. You say something profound happened once you had gamified the studio experience, photographed your experiences, used the screenshots in the printmaking studio. So then what was that next big thing?
In the music department, William O. Smith, who was worked with Stuart Dempster in their modern music program. It was very much like what we were doing in video. It was experimental, it was improvisatory, it was freeform, and interacted with dancers and, in our case, the art students. So here came the musicians into the video studio, improvising with their music, and our art students running the video cameras and the switchers and doing special effects. It was this jamming session, and we had already experienced what it was like to collaborate with each other as art students. Now we were working collaboratively with music students, and then came dance students into the studio. So we were introduced in this way to performance art. And all that performance art involves, not only collaboration, but experimentation, and at the same time applying what your skill, your particular craft is in that milieu. And you grow from that. So it's like a recursive situation where you start a process and it goes out and it comes back, but it's changed once it comes back. So you've gone to a higher level. That was the profound thing, and it influences me even today, even when I think about recursivity, for example, in working in the digital age. It's still important. So that was the most profound thing that came out. I would say the most important thing that came out of my entire video experience.
As this video is the 900th you helped make in the past 55 years, has video sustained you like graphics sustained your mentor, Rolf Nesch?
Well, making this video, this 900th video, has given me pause. And that question, I think I would have to say no. It wasn't video that sustained me. It was using the electronic media in general. Video at the University of Washington campus only lasted until about 1980. Well, actually, I made my last video with students in 1985, and that was on a laser disc. And then we were moving into the digital age, because making the laser video disc first of all, came about after my trip around the world carrying a video camera and making 35 hours of videos, which it turned out the University of Washington wasn't interested in globalization at all. So that was a wasted effort. But finally, the use of computer-aided editing opened up still another level. Again, this is a recursive thing and going on higher and higher levels. The students in that last video art of 1985 made a laser video disc by collaborating even in the editing stage, because it came down to writing a list of numbers. It was called an edit decision list, an EDL, and the students were writing these numbers as to the entry point and the exit point and sustaining the durations and all this kind of factors which were part of the digital process of editing videos. So I was sustained by Rolf Nesch's example of taking on something new and going with it, and where I goed clear out of the university with that information from 19 years of teaching there, including video art and printmaking and how they blended. We were the only university that had a video art course in the world. It was a senior level video art course, and that was an accomplishment. But in the world of electronic media, it wasn't a big deal because it was just a university course and had no credibility in the commercial world or the professional world, for that matter. It was never accepted in the art museums in Seattle. Even today, you can't go to the Seattle Art Museum and watch a videotape, as far as I know. So I left with the know-how to sustain interest in education and learning, and now, of course, self-learning, continuing education for myself. And this recording, or this 900th video, has given me a chance to think about that. And of course, I'm using a synthetic voice to ask the same questions of myself. Let that sink in. And well, I'm Bill Ritchie, and I always say, thank you for watching.
Speaking for Bill Ritchie, thank you for watching. This program was sustained by hope, both the voice and the enduring force that keeps Bill curating, creating new programs, and reaching out for connections. My name, Hope, was given me by 11 Labs and was chosen for this video because hope is Bill's sustaining spirit.